Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and welcome to the Post 88. Making a decision about a job right. So we're nearing the end of our series now, and the whole point really of the work that we've done was to reach this point so that you have a choice. Remember, our argument was about Karl Marx's double freedom, two freedoms. The first freedom we have is you've only got your labour power to sell, but the second freedom is you can sell it to anyone. So at this point, we are now activating the second freedom. Now, I hope you've got a job, two jobs, three jobs from which to choose. Now, I know through much of this series, it's been quite depressing. And there's been a reason for that depression, because the whole point of an appointment process is to make you feel less, feel in despair, feel a bit edgy, feel a bit nervous, to try and make you feel grateful that anybody would even consider you for employment. And academic appointment processes are dreadful, and they are getting worse. And one of the reasons they're getting worse is because of the incredible bagginess of the appointment process. As we've talked about throughout this series, what should be quite straightforward. Hi, Doug, you're absolutely right. What should be absolutely straightforward has now become baggy and difficult, and all these extra components are now added to what is a very straightforward process. Now, what's been so surprising through this series is I've received hundreds of emails from all of you. Hello, you are amazing. And they've been quite emotional emails because you thought you were all on your own. You thought what you experienced through that dreadful appointment process was about you. And I hope what we've shown in this series is that none of this is about an individual. This is a system. This is a process that exists to exploit you, to make you feel lesser. Okay, and we're now at the point where some of the power returns to you. So what I'm trying to suggest to you is there's no singular way of being an academic. There's no singular way of going through this sort of pyramidal hierarchy of a career. That's nonsense. We are now in a post-Fordist environment. There's all sorts of jobs and trajectories and ways to make a living that are available to you. And that's our task for today. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce and implement for you 5 stages for your decision making. So if you are making a decision about a job, if you're perhaps even better making a decision between a couple of jobs, or indeed making a decision between your current situation and what may be your next situation, these 5 stages, scaffolds, will help you, enable you to make that decision. And can I say it's been quite enlivening to do the research and to write this particular post for you this week, because if I'd had this information through my 30-year career, my life would have been different. It would have been better. And certainly 10 years of my 30-year academic career have been absolutely dreadful. About 10 years of that 30-year career, I've woken up, often at 2 a.m. in the morning, and thought, you know what, I'd prefer to be dead than having to do the work day that's in front of me to do. And I've got up and I've done that work day, and I've worked in those toxic environments for, as I've said, 10 years of my 30-year career. And can I say and I've had 10 jobs through my academic career. And can I say to you, every single one of those universities, all 10 of those universities, lied to me during the appointment process. So I was making a decision about a job on the basis of lies, fabrication. And those lies impacted me, my family, my friends, and certainly my spouse. So what I'm suggesting to you this week is we're not talking about a few bad apples here. We are talking about a toxic, destructive appointment process. founded on lies, built on pretense and ego, fueled by fear and disrespect and jealousy, and perpetuated by leaders who shouldn't be anywhere near a leadership role. So this system is organised to exploit you, to make you feel lesser, not worthy. You're never desperate. You always have choices. Now, I'm not saying what we're discussing is an easy life. Academic life is a really tough life. And that's why we're now getting to about 10 years of these videos that I've done once a week, 10 years of them. And right from the start of the project, part of the meta goal was to show you, beyond the front stage, if you will. This is not sort of gleaming, shiny PR for a university. I wanted the camera to follow me around the world so you can see the truth of academic life. And of course, for the last 3 years, you've seen that the truth of academic life is we've been living in temporary accommodation. And all our stuff has been in storage. Our life has been in storage for 3 years. And there are reasons for that, part of what we're going to talk about in the gig today. But what I want to do now is provide for you 5 strategies, a checklist, if you will, for you to enable information literacy when you are making a decision about a job. So, okay, you've got a job offer. With a bit of luck, you've got a couple of job offers. Let's now create that methodology to assess them. And we've got 5 stages. Here's the first one. Gather up all the evidence you can on the prospective employer, the line manager, the school, the department, the faculty, the university. Right. Now, good decisions are based on information and evidence, not feeling and not a vibe. In an interview process, particularly the baggy ones we've been talking about through this series, you've met a lot of people. You've got a lot of data sets. So what you're doing now when you're making a decision about a job is, for this first stage, I want you to park the emotion and just look at the data. So I need you to gather up all the notes you took through all these stages, talking with all these stakeholders, everything you got, all the information from events and from tasks that you were asked to complete. And what you are doing at this juncture is you're making a determination about their professionalism. So if you were treated like a client for a meth lab, then you need to log that, because, colleagues, the best that you'll be treated in this job is during the appointment process. The best you'll be treated is what you've just gone through. Therefore, this first stage is to organise your notes, print out your notes, review your notes, do a bit of content analysis, start to cluster particular arguments. So what did you learn about the organisation, not only or even necessarily mostly from what they said, but what did you learn about the organisation from their behaviour, from their practices? Now that's a key data set. Great, hold on to that. But now we're going to triangulate it. So once more, go to Glassdoor. Look at exactly what they've said about the appointment processes, about working in that organisation. Some very honest stuff appears there. Then I want you to do a search through Twitter, X. I want you to go through Blue Sky. I want you to go through Threads. Yes, go through Facebook, but the sort of data that you're looking for is hard to find on Facebook because it's in private groups, so it's hidden from the gaze. But what I'd ask you to do is go through all these social media interfaces, and you are searching for the institution or organisation by name. You're searching for your line manager, and you are searching for the Vice Chancellor, President or CEO. Now, get all that data, write it down. Now, what I want you to do is go to your National Union website and put into the National Union website the name of the university. So what you're looking for through the union website are particular terms. You're looking for unfair dismissal, you're looking for bullying, you're looking for sexual harassment, and you're looking for covering up of research integrity or academic integrity breaches. So do the very specific keyword searches there. Right. So now you've got some information that is the foundation for the decisions that you are about to make. And can I say, just a reminder, finding nothing does not mean that there's nothing to find, right? But in our oversharing culture at the moment, unobtrusive research methods like we've just deployed will find you some very intriguing data sets. That's your first stage. Let's go to stage 2. If it's not in writing, it's not real. I can hear people cheering around the universe. Jackie, I can hear you cheer. If it's not in writing, it's not real. Okay, so you've got the dispassionate information about your organisation, and now we need to reactivate your emotions. So stage 2 reactivates emotions, and I want you to go through your notes and all the statements and the promises that have been made to you through these baggy protocols, right? So promises about teaching support, teaching workload, tenure or permanence, research support, relocation support, spouse and family support, all the promises that have been made to you. Now, if you get nothing else out of the post this week, I hope it is this particular strategy. Just because it's been said to you does not mean that it's real. All these things have been said to you so that you will accept this job. The employer, often in regional universities, has little to offer you, and so these empty promises are made. Remember the truth that I'm telling you here today. I've worked for 10 universities. Each one of them lied through the appointment process to me. So I have made so many mistakes on the basis of those lies because I believed in people and I believed that people were ethical. What actually happened is people lied and they weren't ethical. What's happening is these promises are being invented to exploit you. And then within days, weeks upon your arrival, suddenly these promises dissipate. So these promises and the decisions that you make from them destroy your life and destroy your family's life. So for each promise that has been made to you, and there might be 1, there may be 5 from all these different people, every promise that has been made, put in an email to the person that made that promise what they offered you, the day, the date, the time, the location. Put it all in an email. CC your prospective line manager, and if you like, CC your HR rep that's managing the appointment process. So what you're doing through this email is you are attempting to get a confirmation of the promise in writing. And you know what? Make it professional. This is professional communication. So put that really frightening red exclamation mark. So, hello, this is important, this is urgent, and do the send receive of the email as well, that you know it's got there and that you know if and when it has been opened. Now, what you're trying to do through this process is render this professional, right? No side deals, no secrets, okay? And if there is no reply to your emails, then you've got the information that you needed to get. You have your answer. It is an untrustworthy organisation. Okay, so that means if they don't respond to their promises and confirm them in writing, you're not going to get those removal costs. They're not going to support your spouse in any way. They're not going to cap your teaching workload for the first year. Now, it's better that you know. Trust me, it's better that you know, that you have the truth of the situation. It doesn't mean that you won't accept the offer, by the way, but it means you know with granular clarity what this offer is actually about, what offer is on the table. Now, can I say you don't do any of this at all? You don't speak of any of this until you have an actual offer, until a contract has arrived for you to sign, don't enact this next stage, okay? Don't do it till you've got an offer. Get then clear and precise information about what is real, what is true, and also what is a spruik, what is spin. And this information is crucial, team, because I have lost tens of thousands of dollars making a decision on the basis of what somebody said and it wasn't true. Now, my late husband, Steve Redhead, his life was destroyed on at least 4 occasions because somebody directly lied to him, said this will occur, and it did not occur. So remember, if it is not in writing, it is not real. Get it in writing, and then it's real. Right, so we've got our second data set. You now know what is true and what is not true. Second data set, let's get your third set of information. So important. 3, do full economic costing. Right, as we always do, as we've done for a decade, let's talk about money. Academics get flattered. We get excited and emotional when we get a job offer because someone's noticed us, someone thinks we're worthy. Don't go into that emotional terrain. Instead, what I need you to do is a full economic costing of this opportunity. Firstly, what I want you to do is sit in your current situation, in your current household budget, work out the money that is coming in and going out with granular attention. Cool. And then for those of you in a relationship, those of you with a family, those of you with a spouse, I need you to do the full family economy for me. Now, your spouse, your partner, is crucial to this conversation. Absolutely crucial. And I would argue money must be perhaps but certainly a determinant in your decision. I'll tell you why. You don't want to be living in another state or another province or another nation and then magically discover that the salary does not cover your expenses. So work out your current financial situation and then do a full economic costing as real as you can on the proposed economic situation. And let me just give you a few variables to consider. Firstly, transportation. How are you going to get around? Are you moving to a place where there's great public transport? That's great. If it's a job in Australia or Aotearoa, New Zealand, there is not good public transport. So how are you going to get around? Are you going to have to buy a car? Are you going to be able to move your current car? What's the costing on that? Is there a good second-hand market for you to buy a car and then at the conclusion of the job, sell the car back, right? So transportation, crucial. Clothing, crucial. Are you able to, with your current wardrobe, do this job for about 6 months? Quite important for blokes, I would argue too. If you're in a job where you're going to need some suits and you don't have some suits, that's $1,000, that's £1,000, that's €1,000, okay? So have a good look at the job in its complexity and all the different components of it and the clothes you need for that job and your current wardrobe. If your current wardrobe will manage it for about 6 months, rock and roll, that's great. Now let's get to the real crunchy one. That is accommodation. Where the hell are you going to live? So look at the rental markets, look at the transitory temporary stuff like the Airbnbs and get actual figures. What does it cost per day? Now, okay, yes, you may want to buy a house. Good on you. Terrific. Knock yourself out. But international higher education as an employer is not stable enough to do that, to buy a house right at the start. What I would do is look about you for 6 months or a year, and you need to assess the viability of the job and the opportunity. The only thing worse than accepting a dreadful job is accepting a dreadful job and then buying a house in that city. And I'll repeat a story of a really great mate of mine. He went with full energy and positivity, lovely guy, into a job. I'm excited, let's do this, it's fantastic. Got the job, bought a house. Within about 6 months, he realised he'd made a catastrophic error, and so got another job. And with positivity and excitement, went into the second job, bought a house. You know where this narrative's going. And then within about 8 months, he had to leave that one again, another toxic environment. And then he got a third job, bought a house, and thankfully that one has ended up being very, very stable. But he had 3 houses in 2 nations, all mortgaged to the hilt. And he had incredible difficulty selling the other 2. So he was just not managing the mortgages. The stress was catastrophic. It cost him his marriage. His marriage ended. And he took huge financial losses on those 2 properties. The money that he got for their sales did not cover the mortgage. So it took him 15 years to financially just break even from this catastrophic 2 years. Now, I've worked in some dreadful places. As you all know, you've seen many of them. I've worked in some dreadful places. But the reason why I'm financially cool, is because I am conservative. I am very wise, I know what goes on, and so I haven't taken any risk. I've never made a catastrophic decision with real estate because I've done full economic costing. I know that you need to watch the university for a while and see if it's viable. And remember, if you buy a house in a regional city to work in a regional university, the chances are you will lose money because the regional housing economy, real estate capitalism, is not strong, okay? Now, you may lose less money than if you rented, but you need to do this granular work. You need to look at what's happening to real estate prices in that city, what is happening to rents in those cities, and do the triangulated data set. So if you stuff up this full economic costing, it will take years, it might take a decade for you to recover. You may never recover. And that's why the best scenario for us all is that you are choosing between 2 or 3 jobs and 2 or 3 locations. So you can actually look at the opportunity cost that exists between these different locations and jobs. So bottom line for me is, don't allow ambition and emotion and titles and stuff make you feel flattered when you're making a decision, okay? Don't do that. It's got to be about the money. Let me give you a story about one of my former students. She did a first class honours, incredibly quick PhD, brilliant human being, wonderful teacher, wonderful researcher, brilliant. And she was making decisions about jobs, but she made an unusual decision. And everybody at the time was like, oh, is that, She made an unusual decision. Post her PhD, she chose a 50%, half-time, teaching job in one of those international colleges that's attached to universities in capital cities, all right? So she got a 50% teaching job in an international centre, right? That was a brilliant decision. She did it because she had great flexibility. She was going to have children. She did have children. That job allowed her to raise 2 wonderful daughters and also manage a household for her wonderful husband, who is FIFO, working on the rigs. Okay, so she was able to manage that household. He's away a lot of the time, and run a family. This was a brilliant decision for her, and as the girls aged, she was able to move to full-time and is now a full-time educational designer. Okay, so I've told you that story so that you don't allow these sort of normative, fictive fairy tales of academic life to tell you about what is real, what's true, what's a homological process for you. You get the promotion and you ignore all of that. That homological academic narrative is a fairy tale. It's not true. And there are plenty of wicked witches. There are plenty of devious wizards who will try and trip you on the way through. So please consider your whole family when you are making a decision, okay? And you need to talk about this with your whole family, your spouse, your children may suffer a great deal because of the decision that you are about to make. So I hope, and I'm writing 3 articles on it at the moment, but the research about regional universities, team. An academic is hired and the spouse is miserable and they leave within a year. It's called the regional churn, okay? The couple think they're going to manage the job and it's just horrific and they bounce out in a year, okay? So if you're going into one of these regional jobs and you've got a spouse, perhaps you've got kids, you have to ask yourself, what's going to make you different? What's going to make you countervailing to what the research about academics in regional universities is connoting? What are you going to do differently? Okay, so remember, when you're accepting these very junior posts, there's not a lot of money there, okay? There's not a lot of slack for you to make a financial mistake. And give you an example, I've done it. My first job in Wellington, in Aotearoa, New Zealand at the Vic, they needed a very quick replacement. I came in, they promised me $900 in relocation costs. You know where this is going. All I did was bring 4 suitcases over. Right? One of those suitcases had my thesis notes in, so I was writing the thesis up during the year, but all I needed for the year was 4 suitcases. That's all it was, $900 in relocation costs. And they didn't pay that relocation amount. Now I wrote to them and said, I don't have the money to release 3 of those cases. They've been brought over as unaccompanied luggage. I don't have the money to release those cases because, like many of you, I just come out of a PhD program. I was a poor student. I did not have $1. I had nothing. The bones of my butt. And look, the university, when I said, look, I'm in a bad state here, they paid the relocation figure. And that was great, got my cases, got myself organised, terrific. But then my first pay arrived. Of course, paying retrospectively, worked a month, then the pay arrives. And I was paid monthly. And I saw that they had deducted the $900 from my first pay. Now, Wellington rents were incredibly expensive, they still are, and I was incredibly poor that year. Didn't buy a coffee, didn't move, okay? And in fact, when I left Wellington after the year's contract, I was $700 in the red. So in other words, I worked a whole year and I was in the red at the end of it. Now, yes, that job got me the next contract. I went back to Australia and got the next job and so forth, but I subsidised that university for that year. And remember, they didn't even pay back the ticket for me to return to Australia, didn't pay the relocation cost to move the staff back to Australia. My new employer paid that, but if they were having to pay that if I didn't have a job to go to, it would have been thousands of dollars in the red. So remember this example. If you don't do the sums correctly, if you're not making sure that the promises are real, then you're going to lose not only time, you're going to lose money. Therefore, do proper due diligence for me, team. Work out your household economy now. Work out at granular detail what it's going to cost you in this new post. Gather that data set. Now we're going to move to the 4th decision stage. Interesting one. So important. Again, I wish I'd known this. Contact your friends who work in that location now, or find friends of friends that work there and talk with them. This is a crunchy data set, this one. It gets the insider's view of the department, of the organisation, of the institution. Now, there are 6 jobs in my career that I've been offered that I refused because a mate of mine works there and went, do not come here. It is a hole. Can I say they often used an adjective in front of hole. So they said, don't come here. So I didn't. And they were absolutely right. I made really good decisions because I took their advice. Okay. So look at your friends on Facebook, look at your friends on LinkedIn, and friends of friends too, connectivity like that, and see if any of your mates work there and you can get advice on this workplace. This is crucial information, this, from the people that work there. And I, for example, to this day, whenever anyone asks me, oh, what was that job like? What was that place like to work? I will always answer that email and I will have a chat to that human being. So I'd ask us all to do that because that's helping people make good, concrete decisions. And remember, you're not convincing them one way or the other. You're giving them a data set for them to make their decisions. They can make up their own mind, but there is value in getting a view from the inside. Now, in 3 of my really toxic jobs, the 3 really bad ones, I had new colleagues on the first day that I arrived coming into my office and laughing at me and saying, this is the worst job you'll ever do. Ha ha ha, you're here, welcome to the Hotel California. On the first day. Right, so why they didn't give me that information when I was meeting with them as stakeholders on the way through is interesting, understandable, but interesting. So be proactive. Ask the difficult questions. Ask for the view of people who are currently in that organisation. And if you do have questions that no one seems to be answering, get in touch with your HR person, the HR person that was running the process, or the line manager. Get your questions answered. Now, I would argue all of us as academics, we haven't been proactive enough in getting in there and making sure we know the type of job that we're going into. Now, people may not respond. You might be asking people to talk with you and nobody does, and that's okay because that's also a data set that you can deploy. Okay, we've got our 4th data set, the insider's view, and you've discharged any final questions with your line managers or HR. That's great. Let's move to the 5th scaffold, the 5th stage in your decision making. Will this job serve your current needs and move you somewhere else in terms of a career in the next 2 years? It is very, very expensive to move between jobs, noting that academic life often involves you moving between cities, between provinces, between states, between nations. The goal, if you can these days, in late capitalism, is to stay in a job for 3 years. 3 years is very successful. If you can get it to 5, brilliant. That is success. Now, obviously, financially, stability is beneficial, and there are other career variables to consider at this point as well. There are still people in our university sector that have worked at one university for 20 years or 30 years. Now, they're also in trouble in a different way because they've had that great gift of stability, but they also haven't tested themselves in different locations. So if they are rendered redundant or restructured out of the organisation, and it's happening a lot to that particular group of people, they don't have the skill set that's required to move and demonstrate that they can move, that they can land in a location and work on day one. Okay, so they then have trouble because they've been at one location for too long. So what you're doing right now is you're making a predictive judgment about the stability of this role. You're going to make a predictive judgment about the stability of this organisation for 3 years. Now, this is really tough to do because if a vice chancellor changes, if your line manager changes, your life changes overnight. We can't predict how other people will behave, but we can look at the current situation and its stability from the 4 data sets that you've gathered so far. We talk a lot, you see it in annual reports, the attrition of students, the attrition rates of students. You rarely see, in fact, it's only one university where I saw this in a table where it talked about the turnover of staff. Very hard to find that data set. It's an important one, but very hard to find. And remember here, team, I'm not arguing for perfection or happiness or fulfillment. The only reason that jobs are advertised now is to solve problems, and often they're catastrophic problems. So you have to do this job, you have to arrive, and you have to solve the catastrophic problem for which you were hired. but there needs to be enough stability that you have a chance to financially break even and a chance to make a living, and that you will gain the skills and the abilities to be able to get the next job. Now that's incredibly important, and we'll be talking about that next week to end the series. But you'll notice really the point of this series has been a singular mantra. Don't invest emotionally in a job. A job is a job. But you're reading data sets, you're looking for correlations of stability. What is the staff turnover? Are the current staff members going to stay there a little bit longer? Remember, there's no long-term decisions to be made here. You're looking for 2 years, 3 years, and if you're lucky, 5 years. The difference between tenure and unemployment is 1 day. 1 day. And we've all seen through the recent US government decisions, a lot of my friends went to the United States to do postdoc, to do research work, and with the governmental decision, they're now returning to Australia. Okay, so jobs are not a religion. You must not have that evangelical commitment to a job. Be real. Invest in facts. Invest in evidence. Now, with that evidence, you're making a determination. Will you be able to work at this organisation for the next 3 years? Will you gain the skills and abilities in those 3 years to get you the next job? Great. So those 5 stages exist to ensure that you have a methodology to make a decision. You're not making a decision on the basis of a vibe. And the reason I've constructed that scaffolding is so you can forgive yourself. Let me explain. Sometimes you do all this verification, all this checking, and you still arrive, and it's a hellhole of a university. You've moved your partner, you've moved your family, you're away from your friends, and you've made a decision, and you know on day one that it's a bad decision. I'll give you one example from Steve and I. Here we go. Steve was being bullied disgracefully in a university, violent, really pretty frightening. And so I had to get him out. And so I got another job with a spousal component and we got out. And then we arrived, and then I was being bullied on a minute by minute, hour by hour, daily basis. So we had to get out again. So we bounced through 3 nations in 2 years, just simply to avoid the daily bullying, to avoid the fear. So this third job, I'm so excited. I arrive, breath of fresh air. I love the staff, love the students, committed to the vision of the university. I believe in the university. Wow, this is terrific. Arrive. And then on my 3rd day at work, the Wednesday, the Vice-Chancellor called all the staff into the big auditorium. And he says, you're all sitting in rows of 10. In the next month, one of the 10 people in the row is going to be removed from the organisation. The following month, another person is going to be removed from the organisation. And the following month, another person's going to be removed from the organisation. And I'm sitting there in this auditorium. And I'd just moved my life again. And on the first week, it was clear once more I had joined a catastrophic organisation. Now, I survived the you're gone and then you're gone and then you're gone. I survived that. Many of my really great friends and colleagues did not. And I still, over a decade later, still have nightmares. Had one last night, actually. Still have nightmares of these colleagues, these friends of mine who I cared about so deeply being sacked, being removed from the organisation, and I'm watching them out of my window, my office window, and I'm seeing them carrying their last box from their professional lives, walking across the car park and putting it in the back of their car. That's how university jobs end. And I remember Steve asking me, because we were still FIFO at that point, the job was up north and he was down south, so I could get him, a stable place to live. So for about a month I was doing the long commute, and I returned to him on the first Friday of the job, and I'd been worried about it all the way down through the flight and the train, thinking, what do I say to him? What do I say to him? And I thought, well, you've got to have the truth. You've got to deal with reality. And he said, how's the job? And I said, Dal, I think we've made another catastrophic mistake. And I told him the story. And that's why this post exists, to give you a methodology and to go through that methodology. Get all the data sets you can, triangulate those data sets, get everything in writing, get the views of insiders, and make a decision. But you know what? Just remember my dulcet tones. Please forgive yourself if you make a bad decision. You've done all you can. Bullying is not your fault. Poor leadership is not your fault. We're all making decisions now in toxic and really dreadful environments. So be present in your present. We can change our lives though, one good decision at a time. I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.